Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a weekly podcast focusing on e-commerce topics featuring interviews with prominent people in the e-commerce space.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations by Practical E-Commerce. My name is Kerry Murdoch. E-commerce merchants strive to increase the number of visitors who actually purchase products. Increasing those conversions frequently takes experimenting and trying new approaches. Merchants can test which variables increase sales and which do not. The testing can be automated, sophisticated, and it produces results. To explain live, real-time, multivariable testing to us, we are joined by Mark Simpson. He's the founder and president of Maymiser, a testing, personalization, and conversion optimization firm. Well, Mark, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Kerry. Thanks for having me do this podcast with you.
Mark, we're here today to discuss the testing of different features on websites, on e-commerce websites, to increase conversions from those websites. For those websites, you're an expert on testing, multivariate testing, split testing. And my first question for you today, Mark, is what are some common split and multivariate tests that merchants need to be thinking about?
Yeah, we see a vast range depending on the website that we're working with. So a good place to start is looking at your site analytics and seeing where you get drop-off points and try and fix those areas in order to increase conversion rates. Commonly, with people new to testing, they would generally start on landing pages and generally start doing A/B split tests across landing pages. Maybe it's complete page changes, maybe it's just changing a button on the page. But very quickly, I think people move towards testing wider through the site. The real return on investment you get through testing is when you start getting towards the checkout area of the site, purely because checkouts have really been largely untouched over the years. I think they've been sort of mollycoddled a little, and they're probably the functionality could be vastly improved. So we're seeing huge increases when we actually start testing within checkout processes and the like. Ultimately, our more advanced retail clients are really using testing on a continual basis. So it's really testing every area of the site and not making any changes without testing. So sites are moving from websites where you used to have redesigns every couple of years to websites which are being iterated on a continual basis. So that in 2 years' time, yes, the site does look very different, but every single change that has been made has been tested, it's been proven to increase conversion rates, and the site is performing a lot better as well. So less guesswork, less gut feel, and much more of that iterative, measured approach to running a website. It's something that the leaders in the space, the Amazons, the eBays, the Googles of this world have been doing since their inception. They haven't gone through big website redesigns. They've really focused on testing with their user base and improving on a continual basis.
You gave the example there of testing checkout functionality, testing multiple features of that simultaneously. Give us some, just to help us understand, give us some common things that you see merchants testing on checkout functionality.
Yeah, so there are a number of key areas in checkout functionality to test. One is how much information you're taking. Obviously, there is a standard, a basic amount of information you're taking, and it depends on the site as to the drop-off rates when you start taking more than just the information that is needed. Testing on things like having to be logged in or an existing customer as such versus just letting people go through the checkout process. Testing the number of pages that you put your checkout process through and also the layouts of those pages is absolutely crucial. And vital in a number of tests we've seen as well is simple things even like the buttons, the position of them, the color of them and the wording of them can really have quite a dramatic difference as to people actually flowing through the process. And also spelling out in a breadcrumb trail how many stages of the process that there are. So there are a number of key areas that can be tested in the checkout process, all of which will differ depending on a site in terms of what works and what doesn't. But vital nonetheless in getting more business through that checkout and less drop-off.
Now you've identified there, Mark, multiple features to be simultaneously testing. I believe the term that's used for that is multivariate testing. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's talk about multivariate testing. This is a very basic question, but if you're testing multiple variables, say a half a dozen variables at any one time, how do you know which of those variables is causing the benefit or the problem?
Yeah, so this is where multivariate testing really comes into its own over A/B or ABC split testing. So with multivariate testing, you're actually getting into the detail of which variables are controlling the uplift and which ones aren't, which ones are most relevant, and how all those parts of the page really interact with each other to form the very best converting page, which you just don't get that level of detail with A/B and split testing. So with multivariate testing, you need a platform to run it from. And the good news is that the platforms are really vary. They range from very expensive to costing nothing. And they range from very easy to use to very hard to use as well. So there's obviously a trade-off in the platform that's used. But once you have a testing platform and you've integrated that with your site, normally there's just a piece of code that you need to put on the site, a piece of JavaScript code. Once that's in, the testing can get underway, and the platform really controls what content is pulled onto the page when the visitor gets to the page. So it keeps the page as it is at the moment. You don't need to develop new pages. You just need to develop new items of content, new variants that get fed into the page areas in which you're testing. And the platform will ultimately control all of that. The platform will also measure how that interacts, what the feedback is, what the conversion rates of all the different variants are, and feed that back in useful reports so you can see what works and what doesn't with ease.
You referred to the platform. Walk us through that for a minute. In the example of your company Maymiser, which we'll get to here momentarily. But if a merchant is using Maymiser, since you're obviously familiar with that, how does that work in the instance of a checkout? So a merchant is using Maymiser. The merchant is utilizing multivariate testing different variables throughout the checkout process. Is the consumer actually routed to Maymiser's servers, and those servers replicate the merchant site? Is that how that works?
No. So this is where some platforms do differ.
Okay.
So with Maymiser, you would integrate. We have a single global line of code that if you can put that into a global header or a template, it means that you can then test on any page through the site without ever having to integrate more code again, without ever having to go back to IT teams. So once that code is implemented, you would go on to the Maymiser user interface, which is just a web user interface. You would then pull up the page you want to test, whether that's a checkout process, whether that's a landing page, and then you can start moving items around the pages, changing the different number of pages, or adding more content into those pages, or differing content into those pages through the Maymiser user interface. Once that is done, we then give you a portal which allows you to QA test those different pages, and then once you're happy with that, because the QA testing is all in a live environment, you would then publish the test, and the test goes live. Now, the test still happens, and the content is still on the merchant's site. So nothing is routed to Maymiser. The content, Maymiser, if you like, is like a rules engine over the page, controlling the presentation layer of the page, but the functionality of the page and the way the page is loaded and where it sits and the way it works still stays with the merchant. And all the content can still stay on the merchant's secure servers as well, or we can host them in the cloud. It really depends on how our partners would like to work.
Does your solution work with different platforms, different e-commerce platforms? Listeners to this podcast are using dozens, if not hundreds, of e-commerce platforms.
Absolutely, yes. And we've got well over 100 e-commerce clients now, and not every one of them has got a different platform, but we've come across platforms from everything from home-built platforms through to IBM WebSphere, and it really does not matter what platform is being used. As I say, Maximizer is there controlling the presentation layer of the content. We're not there to alter the fundamentals of the platform, so we're completely agnostic in terms of any platform usage.
And the example of conducting a test across multiple variables, how does your platform determine which customer sees which variable, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so there are two different options for that, really. One, which is probably a preferred option in order to get the fastest results, is to have Maximizer serve the different content, give the rules to serve the different content on a random basis. So ultimately it's completely random on who receives which variant. That person is cookied to make sure when they come back to the page they see the same variant. Very, very important. And then Maximizer can automatically start optimizing to better performing pages and better performing variants through the course of the test. It's an automated way of optimizing. The other way of doing it, if there are particular rules and you want to show testers specific segments of the market, or limit the number of people who are seeing tests, different percentages of traffic and the like, that's all configurable through a platform's user interface. So there are really choices on that, but I think the preferred route, if you want to get the fastest results, is use the randomized sample that's automatically starting to optimize through that multivariate testing process.
Now, the purpose of all this, of course, as we've discussed, as it applies to e-commerce merchants, is the purpose of the testing is to presumably improve conversions, improve the number of visitors to a site that actually purchase products. And I'm wondering if, without naming names, if you could give us some real-life, actual examples of conversion lifts, conversion increases that you have seen from e-commerce merchants that have implemented multivariate or split test, and how that actually impacted their business. Yeah,
absolutely. So obviously the purpose is to increase conversion rate. I think it's worth saying that defining what that conversion rate is fundamental at the outset. While it might seem obvious that sales is the ultimate conversion rate of an e-commerce site, it is. But there are multiple different conversion rates that go through the site. Things like reducing bounce rate of landing pages. So we have a very large retail client in North America where we've reduced the bounce rate of their landing pages by 19% through one test, through a redesign of the navigation of that page. So bounce rates, things like click-through rates are also quite important as well. Specifically when you start getting, we've done a lot of testing around when someone is just before entering a checkout process, how to get them to fundamentally get to that checkout best, whether you're presenting the checkout after adding something to the basket, whether you're giving them that option where the basket is displayed on the page. We've had widely varied increases in conversion rates through the different tests we've done on retail, anything from very small single-figure percentages. I think the largest test that we've recorded on a retail site was actually to a newsletter sign-up. But nevertheless, it's still relevant. We had over 1,000% increase, which is 10 times the amount of people actually signing up to a newsletter through changing the content and the way in which that subscription page worked, which is phenomenal. It is a bit of an outlier to get those sorts of percentages, but certainly sort of low single-figure percentage uplifts right through to sort of anything up to about 50% can be quite common across single tests that companies are doing.
Now, the instance of the subscription newsletter sign up, without asking confidential questions here, can you just sort of elaborate on that a little bit? Was that a landing page, like a a specific page that a merchant's consumers went to, and you changed that up?
Yeah, exactly. So this was after clicking on a newsletter sign up button. I think off the home page of the retailer. And once that happened, you went through to a subscription form as such. So you need to fill out your details and your email address and all of those elements in order to then subscribe to the newsletter. We looked at testing fundamentally the complete layout of the pages, how much information was taken versus not taken across that. So we did limit some of the information that was taken, but got a massive bumps in conversion rate by doing so. So really thinking about what is fundamentally important when you're asking for a newsletter sign up. The pitch in terms of what the customer was going to get for signing up to a newsletter was also very important as well. And how that all worked together with the call to action buttons, the elements that stood out on the page. We probably produced anything up to, I'm trying to think now, probably anything up to about 250 or 300 different versions of that page, which is very quick and easy to get to if you look at changing, for example, 3 areas of a page with just 3 different versions of content for each. One of those is probably the default. So you're only producing 2 new bits of content for each. You're looking at 3 to the power of 3, so 27 times, 27 different page combinations. So you can multiply that out very, very quickly. It quickly gets into the hundreds. But in monitoring all of those, the winning page gave a massive uplift of 1,000 and something %. So, very, very, very pleasing in order to get more people signed up to increase loyalty to that site.
What sort of information do you see merchants asking for on a newsletter subscription that they really shouldn't be?
Well, I think if you go out to the market, people are really, different merchants are asking for various different amounts of information. So other than just the email address, people are looking at first names, last names, sometimes physical addresses, sometimes phone numbers. You can really you get quite a wide variety of different types of forms out there. I think limiting some of that information, which is not necessarily vastly important to the actual newsletter subscription, is wise, and giving that pitch in terms of what they're going to get very, very briefly, what they're going to get from that newsletter subscription is very important as well.
Another service another option that merchants can do, that your company provides, is a merchant can change the appearance or change the offer of a site based on the characteristics of a particular consumer. I believe, and I think that your company calls that personalization. I'm wondering if I've described that correctly, if you could explain that to us, how that works.
Yeah, sure. So we do have a personalization part of our solution. I think personalization is a bit of an overused term actually in the market. So personalization means many things to many different people. So it's probably worth just sort of spelling out the different areas that we work with retailers on. One is product recommendations, which Amazon have really pioneered and mastered, and there are many different product recommendations platforms out in the market at the moment. So people who looked at these items also looked at these. People who bought this also bought that, and those sorts of areas which everyone's very familiar with Amazon. There are segmentation solutions. We have a segmentation part to our personalization platform where ultimately you can tailor different content to different segments of the market. Different visitors that come on who have similar attributes might react to different content, or is very likely to react to different content. Things like people living in a hot climate right now in November versus a cold climate, you should be affecting the different types of clothes you offer them, for example. But what we mean by true personalization, and the extent that this can go to, is looking at using mathematics to model what is the very best content to show that individual based on all of their attributes and how they've interacted with your brand in the past. So where they live, their zip code, their demographic information, whether they've bought things or not in the past, their interest areas on the site, and so on and so forth. You can really start to tailor the messaging on the site, the offers on the site, maybe the offers you use to attract them to actually convert on that day, the different products you're going to push to them and help them with, maybe it's completely different pages you're landing people on. But you can really adapt the experience for an individual, so your site looks ultimately the site that is most relevant to them. and they're more likely to transact with you, and they're more likely to be loyal customers for you as well.
The more a customer visits a site, presumably the more it can be personalized for that customer.
Certainly, these algorithms that are used to do this are self-learning. They learn over time. So the more interactions we have with different people on the site, the more traffic a site has, means that the algorithms learn quicker. But really, that's you're you can still personalize with less traffic and customers that aren't repeat customers on an ongoing, on a very regular basis, by using similar types of customers as well. So really, yes, the algorithms are self-learning, but they're pretty good out of the gate as well in terms of being able to show more relevant content to individuals that come to the site.
So a first-time visitor to a site, a first-time consumer comes to an e-commerce site selling a product. What can you personalize using your services? What can a merchant personalize about a visitor coming to that site for the very first time?
Yeah, so you might want to personalize the content that you're showing them. Maybe you're recognizing where that person is via their zip code. Maybe you're recognizing the socio-demographics of that person. You can start putting different products in front of them for that. You could personalize the types of offers that you're going to put out to those people. Maybe a 15% discount is going to entice one person rather than free shipping to another person. So really sort of changing the different offers that you might have for different individuals that come onto the site might work really well. It might be that that you're just offering completely different products, a completely different product set, or a different type of navigation, or landing them on a different landing page based on that person's attributes, based on maybe what they searched on before they came into your site. As I say, where they're located, the time of day or day of week they've come onto the site, the weather outside. All of those things will have a factor as to the attitude of the person when they land on a site, and all of those can be used in terms of educating the model and pushing out more relevant content to that individual visitor.
So how can you determine someone's economic status or educational level?
Well, that's actually a lot easier than most people think. Once we have an IP address here in North America, we can relate that to a zip code. That zip code through various different companies, one of them being Mosaic from Experian, will give you a profile of the individual that lives within that zip code. And from that, you can start seeing, I think these profiles, that they go into quite a lot of depth, actually. Things like what newspapers people read, what they do at weekends, what types of car they drive, the type of person that individual is. And using that information can be very powerful in targeting specific content and offers for them.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Maymiser a little bit more. We've talked about the services that you offer, testing services, multivariate testing, personalization. Tell us a little bit more about your company. When was it founded? Where's it located? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so I founded the company 5 years ago. It was founded in London, in Europe, in England, and we expanded through Europe before coming over to the US. I've been living in New York now for about 18 months. The company's been here a couple of years in North America with active clients. We're based in East and West Coast in New York and San Francisco. We have some small offices in the middle of the country as well. It's a company that's growing very quickly at the moment. The sort of split testing and multivariate testing part of the market is really booming right now. So we're very keen to help more and more retailers in increasing conversion rates of their site.
Okay, we have just another minute or so left. Anything else that we didn't address that you wanted to talk to our listeners about? Our listeners being e-commerce merchants, of course, mainly smaller merchants.
Yeah, no, I think we covered quite a bit in this podcast. Really good questions, and I hope everyone got something out of it. The only thing I would probably say is that with the holiday period coming up and increased traffic to websites, increased business being done on e-commerce sites, probably quite significantly increased as well, it's a great time to start optimizing right now. Use that increase in traffic to get faster results, to get quicker education into personalization, and really start, use it to start driving even greater sales through this holiday period. I think it's a great time right now where people can grasp the amount of business that's going on and significantly improve that right now. So I don't have any other comments other than just wishing everyone a very prosperous holiday season.
Okay. Well, for purposes of our listeners, we've been visiting with Mark Simpson. Mark is the founder and president of Maximiser. That's Maximiser.com. I'll spell that for you. That's M as in Mary, A, X, Y, M as in Mary, I, S, E, R. That's with an S, S-E-R, Maximiser.com. It's a split testing, multivariate testing, personalization firm, and that site, Maximiser.com. Mark Simpson, we want to thank you for your time today, sir.
Thank you too, Kerry.
That's all the time we have for this week's e-commerce conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. Please tune in next week for another new episode.